Greetings once again. I'm Steve from Wildwood Guitars, here once again with Lee Roy Parnell, and we've spent the day chatting and getting inspired by Lee Roy and learning about his ongoing musical journey, evolution, and maybe we'll start talking about how you got into slide guitar. It's a big part of your musical identity, not the only part. Lee was a great straight-ahead guitar player, but his slide playing is fairly legendary, and I'd like to know how that happened.
Well, I tell you, I had a pal that was a little older than me, and he had an 8-track tape player in his car, and I had been listening. I was about 13, 14 years old, and we were out doing things we shouldn't be doing, you know, at that age, under the legal limit, should we say.
Right.
And we were coming back from the beer joint, basically, you know.
You were there just there on a research project?
Yeah, it was just research
Yeah.
for my collegiate work that I was getting ready to put in for Juilliard. But I had been playing a little bit with slide because I liked Johnny Winter, and I'd seen Johnny Winter play at the Fort Worth Tarrant County Coliseum. And my God, I mean, this guy was on fire. He was really at the top of his game, and he was a rock star at that time. I mean, he still is, man. It's just that, understand, I saw him with 12,000 other people, paid customers. And a band called Free opened up, and that was a opening thing to see Paul Kossoff at that time. Anyway, the slide, Johnny, and I liked what Johnny was doing, and I started reading a little bit, everything I could get my hands on about, as we were talking about earlier, Guitar Player magazine, vintage guitar, all the books that teach about the history of the blues and the rich musical heritage that is ours, have really not been around much, you know, other than the Lomax stuff that had been written. But we were coming back, and he popped this 8-track in, and it was like the most unbelievable sound that I'd ever heard in my life. It sounded like a woman's voice, just wailing and just crying. And I said, stop. And he said, stop the car? I said, no, stop the tape. And he said, what? He goes, who? I said, who is that? He goes, oh, that's the new Allman Brothers record, live at Fillmore East. And I went, well, I don't know what that guy's doing, but I'm going to figure it out because I want to do that. Whatever that is, that's what I want to do. And Dwayne was, of course, playing the slide, and Dickie was playing straight guitar, and it was just, the record still, it's my Desert Island record, my favorite probably of all time. And I just went on this quest to figure out how this guy was playing this guitar that was so expressive. There was notes in between the notes, and it was beyond. I mean, you heard me playing just a few minutes ago, and I rarely, I mean, when I'm playing regular guitar, no, it's not even slide, I'm in between notes a lot of the time. And it's that tension and release thing that happens with great singers do it. Sinatra did it. Bobby Bland did it. You know, all the great, Ray Charles, all of them did it. It's that tension and release. And so I somehow got a hold of the actual LP, Allman Brothers Live at Fillmore East, and I just consumed it. I mean, just every waking moment I was in my bedroom with my guitar and whatever kind of amp I could find to sort of mimic that sound a little bit. And I still was not getting anywhere, and I was losing all my friends. Because learning slide is like learning violin or any other unfretted instrument. It can be really god-awful for a long, long time. And I actually found out many years later, after I got to know the guys in the Brothers, that Greg said, yeah, people just, oh, please don't, Dwayne, don't do that. Don't take that thing back out. So it was even rough on him in the beginning. Yeah. But that was really what set me on that course of figuring out how's he doing it and how do I do it too.
Mm-hmm. So how do you do it? Since you have been on that, I mean, maybe you could share with people what helped you. How did you begin to play more in tune? How did you figure out you don't use a pick when you play slide?
No.
And maybe you could share your wisdom gleaned after all these years.
Well, the reason for not wearing a pick, playing with a pick, is if you got plastic in one hand and glass or metal in the other, then you're totally isolated. The human touch you're totally isolated from the instrument. So the skin has so much to do. I mean, when you start getting into the little bitty things, like how much drag you're going to put across the string before you actually make the sound. You know, in other words, is it like that, or is it not roughed up in that yet right now? But that is also part of the reason of a lot of guys always thought that playing slide was about dampening the strings behind the slide, like pulling a finger behind or two behind. And I suppose that does help some, but this is what I do, and you can see I have these nails growing out just a little bit. I usually didn't do that, and I'll tell you the reason for that in a minute, but this gives me the chance to use it's almost a banjo technique, actually, because you're dampening the other strings, and at first it's awful because you go, I didn't mean to hit both those strings, you know, and then you go, no, that's not what I wanted to do, you know, and then it gets a little better, and eventually, I don't know if you can get in close enough, but you see how that's just a real simple little lick. Well, that thumb I've struck this string to start that. It automatically falls right there.
To mute the other strings that you don't want to have ringing?
And now that happens over time, and you just got to give yourself plenty of time. It's going to be painful. You're going to lose friends, girlfriends, all that. You can get more, you know. This is what matters, you know. This thing is really what, that is the secret for I think Dwayne, and also Ry Cooter, also Sonny, and of course Derek. Yeah. All fine players that have taken slide guitar much further than I've ever done. Sonny and Derek both are just unbelievable players. But I all have that, and I believe Sonny uses maybe a thumb pick at times. But Derek, of course, does not, and he is just phenomenal. I mean, I played on stage with him at the Beacon Theater in New York, And it's just, you know, you go, well, I could play slide. I mean, one night it was Warren and Derek and me, all three playing slide, and which was pretty wild. I mean, you know, that night. And I think Jack Pearson eventually got in on the deal. But we all have that same sort of technique. All those players I just mentioned just all do. But I think the first thing I heard was Statesboro Blues, you know, and I had the task of learning that. And with my rig and with my little jammed up box the little pedals that I have, with fly dates, you gotta have those things because you just never know what you're gonna end up with, especially rental gear and things like that. Whereas if you're renting around here, you wouldn't have any problem finding it. I see about 100 different choices that'd all be excellent right here. But back to the slide, I personally, I like to use primarily the treble pickup, and I put it on all the way up to 10, depending, you know, unless I want something sweet and low down. But this, if we're talking about Statesboro Blues, then now we're going to talk about how I would set my guitar. That would be in the middle position. The bass pickup would be on about 8, wide open on the tone, and treble pickup would be on 10, wide open, and then the tone back to about 4 or 5, depending on your amp or the guitars are different, you know. But this one, let's see. Which is the intro.
Beautiful.
Pretty much.
Tuning you're using?
It's
could share
an
that,
open E tuning,
yeah.
which is just as if you were actually playing a chord, an E chord. So you would raise the 3rd string, or depending on which is G string, what we'd call G string, up a half step, the D string up a full step, and the A string up a full step. So you got E, big string.
Right.
B, E, A flat, and B and E.
Excellent.
And that was the tuning I learned first. So I was in that for a long, long time.
Choice of slides? You like glass as opposed to metal?
I do.
What about it?
Smoother.
Yeah.
I don't hear, and sometimes it's like when I'm in the studio, if I'm working on somebody else's project, or if I'm using a National, I'll keep different slides just like I will picks, because maybe you want a little bit of noise back there. But generally, for me, if it's for me in my music, I'm usually wanting something with just the pure note. And another thing we were talking about,
Beautiful.
Creating tension with that. One of the things that I have learned, and I don't think I was conscious of it. I just think, especially with slide, you do start doing things that are not in your conscious mind, but your subconscious wants to hear that. So that's what your hands do, and that's just comes with time. But to pull a string a little bit sharp at the end of a note creates a little bit of a tension, you see. It'd be like, I'm pulling it down, letting it off. And there's usually a little roll before the note. It's not.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I don't know how it works. I just know it does.
Well, that's incredible. Absolutely incredible.
Thank you so much.
I'm going to pick my jaw up off the floor, and maybe we'll come back and get Leroy to do some other great stuff for us. Thanks, man.
Thanks,
that was the best.
Thanks.
Really incredible.
Thank you.